The hinges cracked before the silence did. I didn't move. I didn't flinch. Just watched the metal gate collapse like a lung giving out. It used to stand firm, coated with federal-grade sealant, lined with yellow-red evidence tape that screamed louder than any alarm could. But now, there it was, folded in half, broken like the promises buried behind it. She stood on the other side, arms crossed, smirking like she'd won something. Her HOA badge clipped to her blouse like it meant anything here. Her voice carried like an old siren, screeching about property lines and community violations. But this wasn't her jurisdiction. It never was. My hand didn't move from my side. Not because I wasn't angry, but because I knew what that gate guarded. And she didn't. She thought it was some storage area, some neglected yard behind a rusty chain-link fence. She had no idea the gate wasn't guarding junk. It was guarding memory, sealed evidence, classified remnants of something the government still pretends never happened, something that cost me more than years. It cost names I can't say out loud without tasting blood. The moment she touched it, the silent alert triggered. Not a siren, not a beep, just a signal, quiet, instant, and reaching farther than she could imagine. I stepped forward. She backed up one step, maybe realizing this wasn't going the way she planned. Her tone changed just slightly. Less HOA boss, more neighborhood gossip clinging to control. "You just committed a federal crime," I said, finally breaking the silence. She laughed, said I was bluffing, said she'd call the real authorities, said I'd be the one answering for this whole thing. She didn't see the black SUV pulling up behind her. Tinted windows, no plates. She didn't see the door swing open. But I did. The man who stepped out wasn't local. He wasn't HOA. He wasn't even here for her. His boots hit the pavement like a judge's gavel. Karen turned halfway through another rant. Her mouth stayed open, but no sound followed. The agent walked past her like she didn't exist, walked straight toward the wreckage, toward the shattered gate. His eyes scanned the tag, still hanging on one last shred of adhesive. His voice was calm, measured. "She tampered with evidence. Under Title 18, Section 1519, this is a federal offense." Karen finally spoke. Said she didn't know. Said no one told her. Said the tape looked old. The agent didn't blink. Then he turned the tablet toward her. Footage. Her face. Her hands. Her smile as she ripped the tag off like it was duct tape on a Halloween decoration. She looked smaller now. Quieter. The agent looked at me. "You didn't touch anything." I shook my head once. Karen was shaking now. Her voice cracked. She didn't mean to. It was just a gate. Just some tape. It was never just tape. That gate was welded shut for 12 years. It held the last unburned piece of evidence from Operation Hollow Bridge, an op that went black before anyone made it home. Everyone, except me. That tag didn't just guard metal. It guarded ghosts. Ghosts she just woke up. I looked down at the bent steel. 12 years of silence. Now shattered. The agent tapped something on the tablet. A second vehicle pulled in, and Karen finally stopped talking. She wasn't walking back to her house. She was being escorted somewhere she never expected. And I knew this wasn't over. This was just the first gate. The silence that followed her arrest wasn't peace. It was pressure. Like the air before a thunderclap. They took her without cuffs. That was the part that made it worse. It wasn't mercy, it was formality. Because once federal jurisdiction takes over, the process doesn't need sirens. It needs precision. I stood there watching the SUV doors close. She was still looking at me through the tinted window, mouthing something I couldn't read. Not rage, not confusion. Something worse. Recognition. I hadn't heard that name in 13 years. But when the agent pulled up her ID, the last name screamed through my chest like a bullet. Same name as the leak. The man who burned my entire team. Her ex-husband. I stepped back from the gate's wreckage. The agent didn't say anything, but he didn't have to. We were both thinking the same thing. What if this wasn't just a Karen with a clipboard and a god complex? What if this was something else entirely? A cover? A sleeper? He handed me the tablet. Footage from inside the gate. From the other side. Motion triggered. Infrared. She wasn't alone. A second figure appeared in the footage, a silhouette near the corner of the fence. Never entered. Just stood there, watching, and then left, 30 seconds before she yanked the seal. You recognize him? I did. Even in shadow. Even from the grainy heat signature. Keller. My old second in command. The one who went dark the day Operation Hollow Bridge burned. The agent's voice was razor thin. You sure? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. My silence said enough. That gate wasn't just broken. It was bait, and she took it. The agent flipped to another file, cross-referencing the footage with Keller's last known clearance. Terminated. 5 years ago. But logs showed one access request. Last week. Guess where? My property. This was layered. Too clean to be coincidence. Too chaotic to be professional. Someone pulled her in, pushed her, maybe blackmailed her. Maybe she was in deeper than she knew. But that didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that gate was down and everything behind it compromised. The agent gave me a direct order. Stay off grid. Don't engage Keller. Don't speak to anyone about the briefcase. But I wasn't thinking about the briefcase. I was thinking about the night it disappeared. Blood on the concrete. Calm silence. Flashbangs that didn't come from us. Keller disappeared into the smoke, yelling that he had the case. Said he'd meet us at the fallback. He never showed. We thought he was dead. Now he's watching from my own fence line. I went back inside, poured one glass. No ice. No hesitation. Then I opened the box. Only 3 items left from that op. A coin with a hole burned through the center. A field badge half melted. And a photo. The only team shot we ever took. Smiling. Young. Still believing the mission meant something. Karen's ex-husband, Richard Keller, stood in the back. Face unreadable. Eyes too calm. And now, a silhouette matching his height and gait just happened to be near the gate when she broke in. This wasn't HOA drama. This was unfinished war. The agent called again. We traced her call log. 3 blocked numbers. 1 bounced off a tower used by offshore relays. This was bigger. That evidence site had been dormant. Sealed. Until today. And someone needed it unsealed. The last thing the agent said before hanging up. If Keller's alive, he's not alone. I didn't sleep that night. The shadows outside weren't random. They were watching again. By morning, the perimeter sensors tripped twice. No breach. Just movement. Deliberate, measured, distant. Someone circling but never entering. They weren't testing the gate. They were testing me. I stood barefoot in the kitchen, watching the motion indicators blink on the monitor. One by one. North, then east, then west. Always just beyond camera range. Like ghosts tugging at the edge of a curtain. They were mapping my habits. My angles. My blind spots. I changed the routine. Grabbed the old duffel, still smelled like sand and carbon. Inside, the satellite radio, wrapped in flannel like it was sacred. It hadn't been turned on since the court-mandated silence order. But today, the silence was broken. I tapped the secure frequency code, one I hadn't used since the extraction in Valhalla Basin, and waited. Nothing. Then a single ping. Someone answered. 3 seconds later, a voice broke through. Raspy, cautious, older than I remembered. If this is who I think it is, we never had this call. I leaned forward. Where's the rest of the team? Dead, mostly. And Keller? Long pause. Last I heard, he tried selling intel in Dubrovnik. Burned both sides. Disappeared. Everyone thought he was a ghost. He's not. I explained a breach. The gate. Karen. The footage. The silence on the other end stretched. Then the voice returned, colder now. If Keller's circling, it's not for the evidence. He's after what you kept hidden. I didn't respond. The coin? I gripped the bag tighter. You never told them, did you? I hung up. Back in the yard, I stepped toward the wreckage again. Not to stare. To listen. The wind told you more than any sensor did. And today, it whispered one thing. You're being hunted. Karen hadn't acted alone. She wasn't bold. She was desperate. Youth pushed past her limits because someone knew she'd fold under pressure. Her expression yesterday wasn't arrogance. It was panic dressed in control. And whoever manipulated her didn't care if she burned. A car drove by. Slow. Too slow. Tinted windows. No plates. Not federal this time. Wrong tires. Civilian. But trained. I clocked the movement inside. A camera lens, barely visible, resting on the driver's door. Surveillance. This wasn't just about the gate anymore. It was about everything behind it. The records. The map. The coin. That coin wasn't just symbolic. It carried a micro-etch. Coordinates. A location no one was supposed to know existed. Buried under enough layers of encryption to take a government mainframe weeks to crack. But Keller knew. He was the one who encoded it. And if he was back, he wanted in. I returned to the garage, opened the side compartment buried under the welding gear, pried open the lining. Inside was the replica case, identical to the one Keller vanished with. But mine wasn't empty. It had the final archive chip, the only surviving proof of Hollow Bridge, not the edited report. The real one. Names, orders, civilian impact, the cover-up. If Keller got that, everything burns. I stood outside, gripping the handle of the fake case, watching the road. Another car. Slower this time. Windows down. A woman this time. Not Karen. Not local. She didn't even look. But her phone pointed directly at me. Recording. They were testing me again. Looking for a break in routine. A crack in the rhythm. Some sign that I'd moved the real case. I didn't blink. Didn't react. Let them record. Let them think the bait's still here. Inside, I placed the case near the shattered gate. Obvious. Visible. Trap. Because if Keller wanted it, he'd have to come through me. And this time, no one would disappear. Not without scars. The trap didn't take long to spring. By nightfall, the sensors caught more than shadows. Heat signatures. Multiple. Small team. Coordinated spacing. No comms chatter. These weren't kids or trespassers. This was trained movement. Tier 2 contractors at least. Hired guns. Probably ex-intel. Their steps were too quiet for amateurs. Too clean to be cops. They were after the fake case. But I wasn't hiding in the dark. I was sitting on the porch, boots planted, eyes open, shotgun across my lap like a memory that never faded. I didn't need to shoot. I needed to see. 3 of them came through the tree line. Tactical gear, mismatched patches, no unit insignia. Smart. One of them made it to the fake case. Lifted it, checked the weight. He gave a quick thumbs up. Then he turned. That was his mistake. My spotlight hit them dead on. Bright. Blinding. Sudden. They froze. The one with the case stepped back, arm twitching toward his belt. But I was already up. Shotgun lowered, not aimed. I didn't need to threaten. I needed to speak. You tell Keller if he wants what's real, he better come himself. Silence. Then the one in the back finally spoke. His voice was thin. Hold. We're not with Keller. Liar. They backed off, disappeared into the dark with the fake case. I didn't follow. Let them carry the decoy back like good little pawns. Let them waste their time opening a shell with no pearl. Every second they spent chasing, that was a second I could prepare for what came next. Inside, I opened the floor panel in the bedroom. Under it, the emergency crate. A sealed carrier unit, steel reinforced, shock resistant, heat coated. The real evidence. Not just the coin. Not just the archive chip. The hard drive. The one Keller never knew existed. It held the raw feed. Body cam footage. Internal orders. GPS logs. Satellite overlays. Proof that Hollow Bridge wasn't an op, it was a betrayal. The op was a cover. The real mission? Extraction of an asset that never existed. We were bait. And we were expendable. 7 men walked in. Only 2 walked out. Keller wasn't one of them. Or so we thought. At 3:41 a.m., the phone vibrated. Unknown number. Burned line. I answered. The voice was older now. Slower. but I recognized it before he said the name. You kept it. I didn't respond. I should have killed you when I had the chance, Keller. He laughed. Not loud, just hollow. You always did believe in duty over survival. I never understood that. You sold us out. No, I bought time. You just didn't know the price. I stood there, the phone cold against my ear, the air colder against my spine. He kept talking. That case you're guarding, it's not the only copy anymore. You had a leak. Check your fence cam from 72 hours ago. You missed a visitor. I ended the call, pulled up the footage, and there it was. Karen, not breaking the gate, but meeting someone at the back. A car. Briefcase passed. Quick. Efficient. It wasn't just evidence they wanted. It was leverage. They were building a timeline that could rewrite the truth. Frame me. Collapse everything I'd survived to protect. Karen wasn't the start of this. She was step 3 in a plan 5 moves ahead. They were going to take my name, my past, my truth, and shatter it before I could speak. Unless I moved first. I triggered the auto perch. Remote safe servers. Redundancy in 6 countries. The real file was now scattered, mirrored, shielded. But I wasn't running. If Keller wanted to rewrite history, he'd have to fight me for every word. The past wasn't just coming back. It was knocking at my door. And this time, I was ready to answer. The knock didn't come at the front door. It came at the back fence. Low, deliberate, rhythmic. 3 taps, pause, then 2. The old signal. The one we used in the field when everything else was compromised. I stepped outside silent, no weapon in hand but one within reach. There, through the moonlight fog, stood someone I hadn't seen in 19 years. Jace Rivera. He was supposed to be dead. Listed Kia during the sand vortex pullout. But he stood now older, eyes tired, shoulders heavier than his frame could carry. A scar ran across his jaw like question left unanswered. He didn't smile, just nodded. They're not here for the coin, he said. They're here for what it unlocks. I let him in. He didn't speak much. Just looked around, took in the shattered gate, the security feeds, the backup drive still sinking. Keller sent you? He shook his head. He sent others. They failed. He figured I'd have better odds because I still owe you. 4 Red Hollow. That name hadn't left my lips in over a decade. Red Hollow wasn't just a failed extraction. It was a betrayal layered under orders, buried beneath silence. And Jace had saved me then, dragged me through 6 miles of hostile ground with a shattered leg and no cover. So I listened. They want to expose the archive, he said. Not destroy it, twist it. Make you the villain. Say you tampered with evidence. Turn the sealed site into a crime scene with you as the only suspect still alive. I leaned against the wall, the weight of his words cutting deeper than any threat. He kept going. Karen was just noise. A test run. But the real move comes tomorrow. Media. Warrants. Full federal sweep. They'll find the decoy case, plant fabricated footage, say you stole and doctored files. I asked him why he came now. Because I intercepted the last order. I saw your name. It didn't sit right. And I remembered, ghosts don't knock unless they want to be seen. I handed him the last real drive, the one buried in the wall, beneath the foundation where even heat sensors couldn't trace it. He stared at it for a long time, then pocketed it. What will you do? He asked. I looked outside. The sky was shifting pink. Dawn creeping up like it had answers. I'm not running. I've run enough. If they want a public reckoning, I'll give them one. He didn't argue. Just reached into his coat and handed me something I hadn't seen since Hollow Bridge. My bat. Still scratched, still carrying bloodstains from a life I left behind. You're going to need that. Then he was gone. No goodbye. Just wind. I stood alone, staring at the badge in my palm, memories flooding back like a dam had cracked. The first time I held it, I believed in truth. In missions that mattered. But the truth wasn't pure. It had shadows. And now those shadows had names. By noon, the news vans lined the street. Unmarked black cars followed. A local sheriff cruiser showed up, clearly confused but reading from a script. Sir, we have a warrant to inspect the property. I opened the gate myself. Inside, I led them past the fake case, past the decoy files. Every corner they searched was curated. They'd find what they wanted to find, and nothing more, until they reached the sealed shed. That's when the planted agents started whispering. One pulled out a scanner. Metal ping behind the wall. He ordered it breached. Behind that wall was a sealed crate. Inside, only one item. An empty hard drive and a note. Truth can't be buried. But liars can. I watched their faces twist. Confusion, panic, rage. The media caught every second. Outside, I turned to the cameras. You want to talk sealed evidence? Let's talk about the orders that sent good men to die for a lie. They didn't arrest me. They couldn't. Not on live TV. Not with half the files already in the hands of global media. Karen was nowhere to be seen. Her house vacant. For sale sign already staked into the lawn. She was gone. Burned and discarded like all pawns are. But I wasn't finished. I walked back to my gate, and began rebuilding it with my own hands. Not out of pride. Out of memory. Out of war. Out of peace that cost everything to earn. And this time, it would hold. 3 days passed. Not quiet, just silent in all the wrong ways. No knocks. No sirens. No Keller. But the air had changed. I could feel it in my ribs, like an old wound swelling before a storm. The kind of pressure that builds when someone is pulling strings just beyond your reach. The media storm had hit, but it didn't break them. It only scattered them deeper underground. That's how Keller worked. Always in the fog, never in the fire. At night, I scanned the perimeter, watched the feeds. Every fourth frame glitched. A skip, a freeze, a blur. Subtle enough to miss if you weren't trained to see patterns. But I had seen too much not to notice. Someone was spoofing the signal. On the fourth night, I found a breach. A drone, no bigger than a plate, stuck behind the trellis on the north side. Silent rotor, modified lens, cracked casing. It had been there for days, feeding video to someone, somewhere. Probably hidden relays, maybe even satellites. I crushed it under my boot. By the time I stood back up, the phone rang. No number. Just silence. Then a voice I hadn't heard since the tribunal. You made this messy. Senator Laskin, the political face of the operation. The one who smiled in front of cameras while we bled under his decisions. I didn't answer. He kept talking. We're not here to clean your name, soldier. We're here to close the chapter. You had your moment on TV. The world moves on. But you're still in the way. I leaned forward, voice low. You forget, Senator. I never asked for the spotlight. But now that I have it, I'm not stepping aside. He chuckled. Dead sound. You always had that edge. It's why Keller respected you. Why I feared you. He hung up. That was the last polite warning. An hour later, the transformer 2 blocks down exploded. The power cut. My backup kicked in barely. The screens flickered, then steadied. But the message was clear. They were coming. Not loud, not flashing, but surgical. I secured the real archive in a decoy ambulance I kept from my days volunteering on the border. Labeled with fake med codes, parked outside with flat tires so it looked abandoned. Inside it, lead line compartments, magnetically sealed drives, coded backup of every file I'd ever touched. Not just from Hollow Bridge, from Red Hollow, from Sand Vortex. Every black op, every off-the-books kill order that they wrote and burned. I was the insurance policy they never wanted to exist. I drove at dawn. No GPS burner phone. No digital trail. Through farm roads, under radio silence. 40 miles east, near the old training outpost, I buried the capsule beneath concrete poured from my own mixer. Nobody would find it unless I wanted them to. When I returned, the gate was gone. Not broken, dismantled. Every screw, every hinge, every bolt removed with surgical precision. The message wasn't destruction. It was psychological. We're already inside. I swept the house. Nothing touched. Nothing stolen. But the chair in the kitchen had been moved 2 inches left. Just enough for someone like me to notice. They wanted me to know they'd walked my halls. They'd stood where I slept. And they left nothing because they already took what they needed, fingerprints, DNA, trace materials they could twist later. I checked the secured closet. Empty. Not the files, those were gone already. My uniforms. My badges. My old medals. Gone. They were building a narrative. Decorated veteran turns rogue. Hides stolen files. Fakes evidence. Runs ops from inside a residential neighborhood. Threat to national security. They weren't just erasing my past. They were rewriting it. I stood in that empty closet, fists clenched so tight the old scars split open again. Blood dripped to the floor, but I didn't wipe it. I let it fall. Because every drop meant I was still here. Still fighting. Still dangerous to the people who thought they'd buried me under secrets and silence. This wasn't the end. It was only the setup. And I still had one move left they'd never see coming. They thought I'd fold. Disappear like the rest. But I wasn't built for silence. Not after everything I saw. Not after the promises they broke and the bodies they buried. This time, I wasn't just going to defend what they tried to erase. I was going to make them answer for it, publicly, irreversibly. And I wasn't alone. Jace came back the next morning. He didn't knock. He just walked in, handed me a flash drive, and nodded toward the back office. Found the feed they were splicing. Deepfake overlays, timestamp swaps. They've been building your fall for months. I took the drive, plugged it in. It was worse than I thought. They had footage of me entering restricted zones I'd never stepped foot in. Audio clips stitched together to sound like confessions. Fake security footage with my face over other operatives. They were crafting a villain from pieces of truth, wrapped in lies. But we had the raw source footage. From the evidence site. From the hidden drives. The chain of command. The off-the-record ops. And it was all about to come crashing down. We didn't go to the media. We went to someone bigger. I reached out to Aria Vargas, a war journalist who had been blacklisted after exposing the drone scandals in Eastern Sector 9. She didn't blink when I called. Just said, send it all and get somewhere safe. Within 12 hours, she had uploaded the full dossier to 5 independent global outlets. But it didn't stop there. She went live. A full breakdown. Timeline. Operation names. Voice clips. Real footage. She held up my old badge and said, they tried to erase this man. They broke into his home. They tried to frame him. But they forgot some people don't die in the dark. They dragged the whole truth into the light. It spread like wildfire. Across every platform, every screen, protests sparked outside the Capitol. Former unit members came forward, faces blurred, voices disguised, confirming the missions, the losses, the lies. And then came the arrests. Laskin was pulled mid-conference. Karen, whose full name turned out to be Marlene Stokes, was discovered to be on the payroll of a private intelligence contractor linked to Keller's network. She'd been planted to provoke, destabilize, and feed surveillance back through her HOA reports. I watched it unfold on the same monitor where they once tapped my security feeds. They didn't come back for me. They couldn't. Too many eyes on the case now. Too much truth to bury without sparking global unrest. The gate, my home, my name, they all became symbols. But it wasn't over. I built a new gate. Steel. Reinforced. Welded with fireproof plates and an encrypted locking mechanism I designed myself. Not just to keep people out, but to remind me every morning of what I'd survived. And every night I placed that old badge on the desk. Still scratched. Still bloodstained. Still mine. Not because I believed in the system again, but because I believed in what we were supposed to be. Truth isn't clean. It's jagged, painful, covered in scars. But it's the only thing that can't be bought, edited, or buried. And now the world knew mine. So when the sun finally rose on the 7th day, after everything, I stood at the edge of my rebuilt gate, arms crossed, shoulders heavy but unbroken, and whispered what I hadn't dared to believe in years. It's over. Then I turned to the camera. If you've watched this far, you know the truth now. Not the one they wanted you to believe, but the one they tried to silence. Like, share, subscribe. Because sometimes, the only thing stronger than a bullet is a voice that refuses to stay quiet.